When I was watching Oscar De La Hoya at that Golden Boy press conference before the fight, it made me think of the movie Raging Bull. At the end, when Robert De Niro's playing a fat Jake LaMotta, telling jokes to the microphone, but no one's laughing. Well, no one was laughing at that fight the other night either, because there was no comedy, only tragedy. I'm Nate, he's Rich, and we're trading blows.
I hope somebody talks De La Hoya into fighting again, okay? I hope the state of California makes the fight, and I hope he gets fucking knocked out just like Chuck Liddell did in the first round.
Welcome back to Trading Blows, a different kind of fight talk where we represent the hardcore. Please follow us on Twitter at TVMMAPod, Instagram at Trading Blows, or of course our Facebook group, Trading Blows Podcast. It was a great Thanksgiving, Nate. How was yours? Hope you had a great one, buddy.
My Thanksgiving was fantastic. There were a lot of great fights, a lot to be thankful for, and a lot to be hopeful for coming up.
Dude, it was, it felt like the fighting world descended on us for Turkey Day. You know what I mean? We're going to cover a lot, but there's so much more we can't get to. Bellator had a number of events we're not talking about. That awesome Wilder Fury boxing match. We're not a boxing podcast, but that was a great fight. And a lot of stuff went down, but we have a lot to cover, buddy. And I feel like let's get the news out of the way. A lot of things have popped off since we've been gone, and let's get into it, buddy.
Rachel Osovich was attacked allegedly by her husband at her home in Hawaii. She suffered a broken orbital bone and was hospitalized. Her husband has been arrested for attempted murder, I believe, Rich.
Attempted murder. Number one, I'm glad this guy was arrested, and you have to use the word alleged, but this guy did it, okay? And he's a piece of shit. It is what it is, and what else could you say? We both raised sons, Nate, and it's out of the question. You don't lay hands on women. Period. Ostovich is dangerous, but you don't lay hands on her anywhere. That's all there is to it. And I really thought the fight was going to be off, but it looks like the fight's back on, and she really want to make an example for strong women out there that things like this won't change their goals, and I think it's a really nice message, and I think it's great.
Although this is a very difficult time for me and my family, I felt that this fight in January was important. I felt that it was extremely important to me to follow through with it, and not only for me, but first for my daughter and other people that might be going through similar situations. I want to take a stand against domestic violence and show others that, it's okay to come out and speak about it and not be quieted. I feel like I have to do this. This is something that can't be taken away from me. So I want to use this big worldwide UFC platform to show people that don't let anyone or anything come between you and your dreams and your career.
Yeah, it is completely inexcusable. To attack a woman in that way and to bludgeon her the way that he did is just unbelievable.
It's totally disgusting.
But she said that the fight is still on in January, that she plans to be there against Paige Van Zandt, and it should be really interesting to see if it happens.
The style bender is, the rumors are true. He's going to fight Anderson Silva at UFC 235. Anderson Silva has now become a gatekeeper, folks. This is where we're at. He's a gatekeeper.
Well, Dana confirmed that he's guaranteed a title shot if he wins. Did Adesanya get that same reassurance? Probably. But, I don't see how Silva can win this fight. I don't think he's fast enough at this point in his career. If he were 10 years younger, it would be the fight of the century. But I just don't see it happening for him. But I guess we can talk about that another time.
Oh, for sure. Israel really is the new Anderson, really. Let's be real. And that's a cool thing. And Israel was really cool about it, saying, I don't want to kill my idol. He looked up to Anderson.
He said one time to Joe Rogan, I want to fight my clone. And I'm better than this clone. I've studied everything he's done, every single thing. I know some of him better than he knows himself, whether he likes to believe it or not, because I'm on the outside looking in. And yeah, I just want to believe I'm gonna be the guy to bring the best out of him. You're gonna see a different Anderson of old, if you will, Anderson that to beat Joe Belfort in the face and had me running around my room all what the fuck.
I love when that kind of stuff happens in sport in general, and that's really cool. But Anderson's not winning this fight, buddy. But again, we'll talk about it when we get closer.
Sure. Look, this is the greatest middleweight of all time, and Anderson Silva going at it. What more could you want?
UFC is building a new performance institute in Beijing, China. So they're really extending that Eastern presence out there. That's great.
And this was something that I talked about a little bit last time, a couple of weeks ago, from Adam Pass's question from Adam Pass Photo, on where he said, where do you see the UFC in 10 years? I think was the question.
Yep, exactly, yep.
And I said that the way that they grow is by building more performance institutes, and here they are putting one up in Beijing, China.
Well, it's a big market, man. It's the biggest market in the world. So, yeah, let's make it happen. Kane and Stipe, or Kane is back, they're saying, and he's going to fight Miocic. We were going to have a lot more to say about the heavyweight division later in the show, but this looks to be, if this is real, this looks to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's supposedly in the works. I guess I will believe it when it's, I guess, officially announced. I'll believe that Kane's back when he's back in the ring. I hope he's back. Like, I want to see him come back and fight Stipe. It would be a fantastic fight. I just don't completely believe in it yet, I guess.
Well, Kane's body's let him down so many times. It's, they train really hard, and his body's just like that. Unfortunately, you see athletes like that. Ken Griffey Jr. comes to mind. They're great, but, their body doesn't let them do it. Tyron Woodley is said to be in talks with, making it happen with Colby Covington finally, UFC 233. But coming off of that Usman dominant performance at RDA, Dana was kind of talking about Usman now stepping in. So maybe there's a little tension. Dana
was very clear in that he wanted to see Usman fight. So maybe Covington has to fight Usman, or maybe Covington just has to wait.
Well, I mean, Usman, it's going to be one or the other. It's kind of funny because I feel all three of these guys are kind of, similar sets of skills. You know what I mean? They're both very strong wrestlers, heavy-handed. So, it's going to be interesting. Any combination of that I want to see. It's becoming a logjam. Let's not let it go any further. I feel personally, if you're going to give Colby Covington an interim title belt, you got to have it mean something and have him fight first. I mean, Usman looked great, obviously dominant, but we'll see how that goes.
Randy Couture claims that the UFC manipulates its rankings. When asked about Lesnar jumping the line to fight DC,
they want to tout their USADA and all their strict rules for drug testing, but somehow this guy managed to get through and still managed to fail a test but still compete, which makes you question what's going on. Obviously, the rankings and all of that stuff, they manipulate that however they want anyway. Whatever makes business sense to them is all that really matters. They don't care about the fighters. They don't care about those rankings. Lots of guys have jumped queue. It's certainly not based on merit. So that's nothing new. I'm not surprised. He's a huge draw. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the business of it. It's about selling pay-per-views. Certainly, DC is the champ, and rightly so. And put him in there with a guy like DC, and that's going to draw huge pay-per-view numbers. So that's what it boils down to for them.
Rich, this is kind of where sport and business clash, because Randy's saying what most of us have suspected for a while, that the most deserving athletes get passed over for the ones that are most popular.
The ones that talk get the shots. It's kind of a change now. Really, Conor really brought that to the forefront using his mouth. He's got the skills too, Conor. Let's make no mistake. But when you talk and you deliver, you're going to move up to the guy that just delivers. I mean, that's very clear. And that's the nature of the business. And Natural's not wrong here. But Brock there's a reason why Brock has brought one of the top drawing pay-per-views for the company. You know what I mean? That it is what it is. I mean, he does.
Well, what's interesting here is that the UFC is not a league per se. They're a business. So right. Randy's saying that they should act like a league, but they're not a league. They're a company, and their goal is to make money. So they're not going to put up the fight that the league says they have to. They're going to put up the fight that makes the most money.
Well, boxing's the same way. I mean, you're in the fight business. It's entertainment as well, and you got to get guys to buy that $60 pay-per-view, and you don't do it with white toast versus Joe Blow. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You got to have some flavor in there, and Brock does it. Brock does not deserve to fight DC. I mean, we're going to talk about heavyweight division later, but if DC's done, there's some fights I want to see DC do regardless. Way better and more interesting than this fight. But it is what it is. I mean, Brock sticks around. I doubt it. I think, but whatever. But Randy's not wrong.
No, he's definitely not wrong. But I mean, that's just the nature of the business.
Right. Sage Northcutt. Now here's a perfect example here, Nate. The business. Okay. Sage Northcutt. Wholesome. Kid looks like a Ken doll. Okay, straight up. Okay. He does. I mean, this kid, Sage Northcutt, gets cut by the UFC. Okay, he's 11-3 on a 3-fight win streak. touted at, one of the youngest guys to ever debut at the UFC, all the talent in the world, and one of the classiest, nicest kids you'll ever see. I mean, honestly, you see him in videos and interviews. That's him. It's almost annoying how nice he is, right? And, they get rid of him, and now he's going to go sign with one. Okay, I don't know why they didn't renew his contract. It almost like Bisping has said on his podcast, he had said, they're not incentivizing guys to fight out their contracts. They're not doing it. They want you to negotiate before your last fight because you end up like freaking Sage Northcutt, who everyone thought was the next star in UFC, and now he's fighting in Malaysia.
Well, something about this whole story just isn't adding up for me because it's really unfortunate because Sage Northcutt seems to have all the makings for a star because here's a good fighter with good skills. The UFC promoted him well, and he did well, so why isn't he getting a good contract?
And you know what? Here we go. This is exactly what you're saying when Randy was saying too. Here's a guy, Greg Hardy, okay, one of the biggest pieces of shit out there, okay? He gets, he looks good in his Contender Series debut. He looked good, okay? He looks athletic, looks like a monster. He's on a development deal, okay? But he's got, it's like that linebacker who got, cut by the San Francisco Niners, and now he's with the Redskins now.
Was that Reuben Foster?
Right, and then the Redskins ended up taking him in the worst PR move ever, you know what I'm saying? But of course, now he's on the exempt list. We're not an NFL podcast. But all I know is that here's a guy with the athlete takes precedence over values. You know what I'm saying? And here's a guy, Sage Northcutt, you couldn't have higher level of class and values versus a Greg Hardy who's still with the company, who is an animal, in my opinion, versus a Sage Northcutt that I hope he does well in one. I mean, one's really trying to build something out there. What can I say?
Well, something's making me wonder on what really happened. I mean, did the UFC really just throw him away? Because part of me thinks that possibly someone in his camp may have told him that he's going to be a big star because he looks like Zach Morris and he has abs like Mike the Situation. So he's basically Tim Tebow with real skills and without the virginity. So
he's real good, though.
No, I know, but he has all the makings to be a star, so he should make this kind of money. And Dana probably said, whoa, you're Sage Northcutt. You're going to get what we tell you get. Maybe they arrived at an impasse, and maybe Dana said, why don't you go become good enough to deserve that kind of money? I mean, I don't know what happened, but something's amiss here. I don't believe that the UFC I don't believe Dana just woke up one day and just said, no, I don't want him, just get rid of him. Something must have happened with that.
No interviews really pushed him on that issue. They've asked questions, and no one's really pushed him on it. But you're right. I don't know. One's clearly building something out there, and maybe he'll do something. I mean, he's definitely got a lot of skill. I foresee him. He's still crazy young. I foresee him back in the UFC. Speaking of somebody who's still in the UFC, BJ Penn is finalizing a 4-fight deal with the UFC, and people in glass houses want to throw stones, right, with Chuck Tito and other guys. BJ Penn doesn't look as bad as Liddell, but he has no business being in the UFC anymore, man. I love BJ Penn, but what are we doing?
Yeah, I don't really understand it. It seems like now BJ Penn looks like he's going to turn into that gatekeeper type of fighter. And to think to think that BJ Penn is going to be that type of fighter, I don't know why he isn't just going away. I mean, if he still has it in him and if he can still compete, I just don't know at what level he can compete at. And I don't think the level that he really can compete at is the same as what he thinks. So, I don't want him to go and take on people where he's just going to get brutalized, and I think that's what's going to happen.
He's definitely going to get brutalized.
Well, BJ Penn, make no mistake about it, in his prime, he might be the best 155-pound fighter ever. I mean, he is in that argument. He is in that top 3 argument for sure.
No, I'm not taking anything away from BJ Penn, but all I know is the guy has lost his last 5 fights, okay? And he was a draw before that against John Fitch, okay? And that's going back to 2011, okay? This guy, he's a legend, no question. Okay, Hall of Famer, no question, no doubt. But this is a Rodrigo Nogueira situation, Chuck Liddell situation. These guys are, you have to protect them from themselves. They can't help themselves. You know what I'm saying? And
it is certainly trending that way, and it certainly looks that way. One thing about BJ Penn that does distinguish him a little bit from most of these other people is that he didn't fight a lot of fights during his prime. He took a lot of time off between fights. So sure. I don't know how many total fights does he have? Because he doesn't have like 60 fights like some of these guys. How many fights does he have?
Well, he's been in 30 matches.
30 matches, which is a lot. But I mean, compared to some of these other guys who have been in, Anthony Smith has more fights than that already.
30 matches going back to 2001 where he made his debut against Joey Gilbert, UFC 31.
So he's certainly pushing it, but it's not like it's completely astronomical like some other cases we see.
True, but he's not like one of these guys that are not going to, he's been in wars too. I mean, he's just scrap, baby. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, so he's had some slobber knockers where he's, licking blood off his hands and going in. You know what I mean? So
for sure.
So it's not like he's not like a Damian Maya that makes their case of low impact and stub you out. You know what I'm saying? It's not like that. So,
and BJ Penn was also a guy who would fight anybody, anywhere. Like he went up and fought Machida at a higher weight class when he was in his prime, really. I mean, that was right around when he beat Gomes. That was probably, 2003 or 2004?
He fought Lyoto in 2005 at Heroes. So here's something cool, and it's going to kind of tie into the heavyweight thing we're going to talk about later. Dana wants to, put this logjam at lightweight to rest, all this BS to rest. And of course, the Nevada State Athletic Commission has a lot to say about this, but he wants to have a little tournament. Okay. He wants Tony to fight Khabib, Justin Poirier to fight Conor. Winners fight each other for the championship. I love this idea. I love these matchups.
Yeah, it should be fantastic. I mean, it seems like Dana finally said what everyone has wanted him to say for a few weeks now, to come out and say that these guys are going to fight, then the winners are going to fight, and that's how it's going to be.
No Nate Diaz to be talked about either. I think he's kind of pissed about Nate dropping out that time.
And I'm fine with that. Yeah, because Nate should have taken a fight to help keep that last card afloat, to keep 230 afloat, but he didn't. It seems like Nate's not really a team player, so to say. Not saying that everybody has to be, but don't go expecting favors when you're not going to give any favors.
Exactly. I mean, he's turned down 1 million fights according to Dana. So if you're just waiting for Conor, why are they going to reward you for holding out for like 1 million years?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
No, the UFC finalized a deal with Kron Gracie, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu prodigy and son of the great Rickson Gracie. His first fight will be against Alex Caceres, a.k.a. Bruce Leroy. Rich, I mean, this could be a huge monumental moment for the UFC. We don't know exactly. At least I don't know exactly what Kron Gracie's motives are, but I mean, if he wants to become the champion, this is going to be really interesting, really fast.
Plenty of videos out there, talking this guy up.
It's really fascinating watching Kron. For people who don't know, his dad is the greatest jiu-jitsu guy of all time. There's one guy that's always thought of above all others in the world of jiu-jitsu. It's Rickson Gracie. The things I want to ask you about Kron, he doesn't do any new shit. Like, everything he does is old school jiu-jitsu, old school Rickson Gracie style, that real basic set of techniques, and it gets him laser sharp. That's all he does.
Yeah, he has an incredible rear naked choke and even more insane guillotine.
I mean, he looks to be the part, man, and looks straight up out of a movie. Like, here is the son of a master making his way into a new era. And could he be the champion? I mean, if he's just, clearly he's got the ground game. Does he got the chin? Does he got the striking? Remains to be seen. He got to be a complete mixed martial artist. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes.
Well, we have seen him fight before with like mixed martial arts. I mean, he fought Tatsuya Kawajiri, and that was a really good fight. He showed really good dirty boxing skills. He showed he had a good chin. He took some big shots from Kawajiri. So we have seen a little bit of that, but we do need to see more for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get settled up pretty quick. I mean, UFC's, the Gracie name is a big time thing, and this kid is rolling with it. It's going to be very exciting. To the new school till we got the old school. And then we're going to get, a lot of fights went down when we were eating turkey, as we know. Okay. And one of the ones was that Tito Chuck 3 debacle. Where do you want to start with this one, Nate?
The Tito and Chuck fight was the biggest disaster that I've seen in years. I mean, I can't think of the last time that I felt more sick to my stomach after watching a fight than watching that fight.
I mean, Oscar De La Hoya from the get-go had, he just, it's ridiculous. And Dana had a lot to say about it.
First of all, let's say this first. I heard last week the cokehead, Oscar De La Weirdo, is talking shit that I don't have any place to tell guys when to retire. I don't tell fans when. First of all, it's called friendship. Friendship, you fucking cokehead. I've been friends with Chuck Liddell, for 20 years, and the reality is that Chuck Liddell retired when he should have retired, 8-9 years ago, however long it was. And Chuck Liddell's almost 50 years old and has no business fighting anymore. And the fact that the state of California even let that fight happen is disgusting. Disgusting.
But this guy is standing up in front of all these fighters, okay? With the press conference. He doesn't even know any of their names, Nate. He doesn't know their names.
The whole thing was just a complete joke. And then when you see Chuck hitting the mitts before the fight, God.
That
was depressing just watching that. And, like everyone's saying that Chuck needs the money, so that whole situation is depressing. Like, why does Chuck Liddell have to get in there for money at this point in his life? So that whole situation in of itself is just a complete disaster.
Let's talk about something positive with it, okay? One thing I liked about the event was the old school entrances and the old school. You got the no more Reebok nonsense. You got the vintage shorts. You got break it. Give me something to break coming out. The whole deal. Maybe think about the great times UFC back in the day, and that was a nice little trip down memory lane for about 5 minutes. I did like that. And you saw Liddell's face. I mean, yeah, he looked like poop with warming up in the back in the open workout. It looked. I mean, you saw the open workout, and it looked tragic, but. Nobody had a bigger smile on their face than Chuck Liddell coming out to that ring, man. He missed it and loved it.
Yeah, you're definitely right about all that. But watching Chuck in the ring was scary. Like, he looked like he was on stilts in there.
No. He looked horrendous. And
he looked like he'd never been in a fight before. Like he had no idea what to even do in there, it seemed.
Tito Ortiz had his first standing knockout of his career.
Did you see?
Everyone knew.
Did you see how excited Tito was after he won that? It was like he won their first fight. It was so bizarre, it seemed to me. And like, the first time that I ever really saw Tito dig the grave after he won a fight was when he beat Evan Tanner, when you and I saw him in Atlantic City in like 2001, and that was like awesome when he did it. I was blown away. I thought it was amazing. When I was watching him do it the other last weekend, like, I was cringing. I mean,
well,
that is so
pathetic. Yeah. He was going to do it, though. I mean, that's kind of his thing.
But isn't it so stupid? It was kind of worse. And then did you see the guys in the suits trying to stop him? Like, they didn't know what was going on. That was so stupid. I couldn't believe how bad it was.
I mean, like, your producers don't know that this guy, should he win, is going to do this whole thing. What do you think he's going to do? Go jump on Liddell?
So that's dumb. That whole ending, dumb. like the following fiasco after the finish was so bad. I mean,
and then he's sitting there, and Nate, and they're interviewing him, and he's like, Chuck, we should make that happen. Keep fighting this and this and that. Like, no one on the planet wants to see Chuck Liddell back in the ring. They didn't want to before. You definitely don't want to now. Like, and obviously he can't now. He's been indefinitely suspended by the Athletic Commission for good reason. But to sit there and be like, what are you talking about, Tito? I mean, like, you know how bad that looked, dude. When Tito is stalking Iceman Liddell in a striking situation, what is going on? That is not how it should have went down if that was really happening. You know what I mean?
Well, just hearing Tito trying to sell it after the fact, because we all saw the fight and saw how much of a disaster it was, but then after it's over, Tito's like, Chuck, brother, you pushed me, man. You're a true warrior, and saying that kind of stuff. I mean, oh my God, it was awful. I just wanted to turn it off.
Yeah, he pushed him. The only real punch that connected in that fight was the one that knocked Liddell out. It was ridiculous.
Tito did hit him right in the button. I'll give him that.
He did, and Tito's been more active. We all knew how it was going to go down. Tito was actually in great shape and active. He could probably beat up, some, out of the top 15 guys. He probably still beat him up. I mean, I wouldn't put it out of him. He went up against a guy who had no business being in there. And here's what killed me too. Here's what killed me about the whole thing in general with the show. Okay, first of all, you got Frank Mir. He did a good job behind the mic, I think. But Frank Mir, he's in there interviewing the guys, and he's asking them, okay, yeah, what's next for you? And none of these guys have any idea what's next, because they don't know if it's even going to be another show. Like, is there going to be a belt? They have no idea what they're doing. So it's like, what's next for you? I don't know. Go home and freaking work on my car? I have no idea what I'm going to do next, buddy. Like, what are we talking about?
Then you know what I mean? Well, then you see how much these poor guys got paid. Like, a couple of these guys got paid like $2,500, and they're on the main card.
Bro. 1,000 for show, 1,000 for win. That is like backwards.
I can go to a show down the street that's paying that to fighters.
And Oscar fucking De La Hoya says, oh, come over to Golden Boy where we respect the fighters, and it makes me sick what these fighters were paid and all this shit. Out of 14 fights on the card, 5 bouts were amateur fights, which means he didn't pay them jack shit, right?
Right.
And 12 of the professional fighters on the card made less than 3-3. What the fuck are you talking about, you cokehead junkie?
That is amateur gym style smoker event type shit. That's 1,000 to show, 1,000 to win. I mean, are we serious? You can't even pay for the plane ticket with that money. I mean, what are you talking about?
It was so bad. I mean, it was the worst. It was the worst show that I've seen, and I can't even remember how long.
Oscar talking like this is where you get paid. You're paying guys amateur contracts. You're paying guys 1,000. I mean, yeah. Liddell Tito got paid. Fine. And I hope Liddell made some cash. You know what I mean? And, it did pretty well on pay-per-view. It looks like it did pretty good. But I knew that because there's an interest in Liddell, obviously. There's an interest there. And the half price and half price sale.
But they said that half price sale didn't even work. Like there was like a contractual dispute, so they had to pull it at the last minute. And it was just another black eye for the whole show.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, the whole thing was there shouldn't be another Golden Boy MMA show. I mean, honestly, and and there was talk for a second there that Chuck is like, oh yeah, I'm still fighting. I'm going to fight Vitor Belfort. I was that
was on his Twitter feed, and then it came down. So I don't know what happened with that.
Yeah, because he probably knew no one wanted to see it. He's going to fight Vitor. I'm sure that was the plan.
Well, I'm sure that was backlash. I mean, he probably had family calling him, like saying, "No, don't do that."
And and on Unfiltered, the famous interview everyone's heard with Dana. Basically, yeah, they could have made that fight themselves. That's, if they're looking for money only, and Dana had the good thing to say.
First of all, I don't want to make $1 of this kind of money. Right. I do not. I've said that since day one. When I mean day one, 17 years ago.
Because, yeah, that could, if UFC promoted it under the UFC banner, Liddell, Ortiz 3, regardless of why and how and what, it would have done a lot better, and it would have been a higher quality show, and people would have bought it. I think, you know what I mean? But they didn't want to make that kind of money, and good for them. And he's trying to protect his buddy, but I mean, it was just a sham, man, sham.
Yeah, the whole thing was just a disaster.
Oh yeah. Well,
Chael Sonnen had an interesting take saying how, the reason why Oscar seemed like such a disaster doing the promoting for this is because his heart was never in it, and that Chuck and Tito probably just wanted to fight, and they wanted to get some money in their pockets. They probably brought it to him and pitched him on the idea, and Oscar was like, sure, but then he just didn't know how to really promote it. He didn't know anything about these guys.
No, he didn't know anything about him. It's very clear. I mean, he has Oscar. It's not just Oscar. It's a lot of handlers, and MMA makes money, and these guys are big players. And if they done it the right way, if you had a higher quality card with a real main event, like I remember when the Affliction tried to come out with some events. They had some good events. They had like Arlovsky, Fedor, and Barnett, and that was like a secondary kind of show. They're trying to come up and. That was some great events, and they knew what they were doing, and they had like a Pride style entrance, and they were really cool. But this is it looked like it was poorly produced. And by the way, Tito's been medically suspended for 180 days for a fracture of his left knee and his shoulder. How the hell did that happen? What did he do? He hurt himself digging the grave? What did he do?
But that's probably the most action that he got was wrestling with those guys.
Dude, the freaking two big security guards are holding him. He breaks his shoulder and he broke his knee. So, getting into some quality MMA, because there was a lot of it, Nate. There was a lot of quality MMA. The tough finale went down with, the women's featherweight tough winner being crowned Macy Chiasson by a rear naked choke in the second round. She looked great. And the tough heavyweight winner is Juan Esposito, known as El Guapo. Another guy. Let me just a side note, okay? All you guys. Check out nicknames out there are legends. Don't take their nicknames, okay? I don't care what that means. Like Ngannou is the Predator. Okay, buddy, you're great. You're not the Predator, bud. Okay, you're not. And this guy, he looks okay. This guy's not El Guapo, okay? There's only one El Guapo, okay? Anyway, that being said, this guy won by first round Kimura in his UFC debut at 38 years old. This guy's 38. It becomes the first Spaniard to win a UFC bout. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I mean, to turn on that late in life to do something like that, because, I mean, the tough winner, I mean, that's just the beginning of most careers.
But what everybody was waiting for, Nate, was the Kamaru Usman RDA main event. And, Usman didn't disappoint.
No, he didn't. He really turned a lot of heads. A lot of people took notice of what he did because he did just totally dominated RDA. And RDA looked like a game. He looked like a game competitor. He came to fight. He did his best. I mean, he had a pretty good shoulder lock there in the second. He did a few things that were really impressive. But I mean, Usman was just way too much for him.
He did exactly what Colby did. I mean, like super strong wrestling, and I love that body work against the cage. And sometimes RDA was trading with him, and he was delivering his own shots periodically, but. And I think he hit Usman pretty hard a couple times. And again, you were saying he threatened with that submission, but it was 1,000% Usman long margin. And like we mentioned earlier, that was such a great performance, that Dana's really considering, Usman jumping the line and having him take on Tyron. And personally, me looking at it, Colby's going to sell the fight a bit better because Colby's just this MAGA ridiculoid gimmick he's got going on. And that may be better for maybe selling the fight, but in terms of like, real fans watching it, I'd like to see this Usman against Tyron. I think you got two guys with very similar skill sets. Who's better? I mean, I think it's going to be a very interesting fight if they get down.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, either of these guys would be great to see fight Woodley. And it'd be great to see them fight each other. I mean, I want to see them fight each other at some point, but I think one of them has to fight Woodley first.
UFC 141, was fantastic. We got a little breakfast and fights, which is nice. I like that. That's pretty cool. For a guy that, out here on the East Coast, a lot of times these main events are popping off at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And it sometimes, Rich wants to go to sleep. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes, you know what I mean? But this is nice in the morning. And we had some nice action. Li Jinglong looked fantastic against Zawada. Really great fight there. Song Yadong made it happen against Vince Morales. I mean, we had some good fights in the undercard.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had Overeem. It seemed like a resurgence in Overeem. And
devastation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had, Nagano, who made quick work of Blades. I mean, no one saw that coming.
Well, Nagano's got that power. You know what I mean? And, it looks like a resurgence by these guys. I mean, Overeem looked really bad against Blades, in his last fight, obviously. Hands the new kid his first loss. He calls out Derek Lewis at the end of that fight, which I like that matchup for sure. And they got Nagano here. What can you say? Blades did not. Now, here. You get me on you put them in a situation where it's best of 5 fights or something. I still want Blades. in that situation. Blades did not test him at all. Nagano is now feeling better about himself, being kind of the front running guy, but he really didn't get tested in any way wrestling and nothing. I mean, he was so quick. What could really happen? I mean, and I like the stoppage, but there's a case to be made that maybe was stopped a little early too. I mean, there's some folks out there that didn't like the stoppage, and there's a case to be made for that.
Yeah, I could certainly see the case be made for that. I personally thought it was a good stoppage, but I mean, I could see people arguing that because it was close. I mean, to me, I thought his hands were up in the air, like he was defending himself, but he wasn't defending himself. He wasn't getting out of the position.
You're talking about a 45-second deal, and he got dropped 3 times, and he was kind of flailing. I didn't like it. And yeah, Nagano's. I mean, that's what you pay Nagano for. He's got that lights out power.
Yeah, Nagano's coming with like heat-seeking missiles too.
Right, and but what I've always worried about with this guy, and it's been exposed, and Blaze didn't have a chance to expose it, is everything else about the game. His defensive wrestling, his submission game, his cardio. I mean, like his mental makeup's probably a bit better now that he made that big win, but I feel that still he could be broken. I mean, it remains to be seen, but he's not going anywhere, obviously, in the heavyweight division. Moving on to UFC 142. Last night, this was a lot of great fights, buddy. I mean, we could talk about the heavyweights here in a minute, but
Shogun Rua.
The return of Shogun Rua, Nate. I mean, what a fight. What a fight with Shogun Rua, Nate.
This was an incredible win for Shogun Rua. I mean, he was in big trouble in the first round. He was staggered by the headbutt, and then he got a couple of big shots, like that uppercut he took.
Ooh.
And, I mean, I don't think it should have been stopped, but man, it was getting pretty close there. Right around that time, it was pretty close to being stopped.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Tyson Pedro looked like a monster in there, Nate. He looked so much bigger.
Well, also, like the way that he was fighting, the way that he kept flinching, and so hard to time it, it just seems so you're so on edge trying to figure out his timing and stuff like that. And, he was really hurting Shogun there early in the fight, but then Shogun took him down the second round, beat him up a little bit, and the third round tagged him, and he was just unloading on him.
Such a smart move by Shogun. I mean, showing that veteran savvy. He was definitely in trouble in the first round, and he was like, you know what, let me make it happen, put it on the ground, and he was scoring down there. He wasn't just laying and praying. He was scoring down there, and he was clearing his head, and he's getting ready for that third. You saw it happening. It was smart veteran move by Shogun, showed a lot of heart, and he's back in the top 15. I mean, but basically, dude, Tyson Pedro thought he was going to get a nice little resume knock by taking out a legend. That shit did not happen, bud. It didn't happen. Shogun showed up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for being later in his career, this is definitely one of the big highlights in Shogun's career.
Oh, dude, it was an incredible fight. And what's next for Shogun? I mean, he's not going anywhere. I mean, he's back in the top 15. Okay, light heavyweight. We'll see. Unlike some of these other guys on their way out, like the BJ Penns and, Liddell to more of an extent, Shogun's not going in. He looked great. I mean, yes, he got decimated by Anthony Smith in his last fight, but looking good here. I can't wait to see what happens next with him.
Well, next we had Mark Hunt versus Justin Big Pretty Willis. What'd you think of this fight?
Justin Willis did what he had to do to win. I didn't expect him to be aggressive with a guy who can detonate your face like the Super Samoan. But, Hunt looked like he wasn't into it at all. He looked really off. Like, I didn't like how the body language in general, like he's always had like a nonchalant attitude, Mark Hunt. It's always kind of his thing. But this was more like, I don't care at all. Like, he's like, I just want to get this over with kind of thing. I never thought I would say that talking about a Mark Hunt, but that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, the fight didn't feel right to me either for a little bit of it. I mean, I didn't find it to be all that exciting. No. There were some good exchanges at times, but it just never really got off the ground. Didn't think anybody was ever in really big trouble.
Willis did enough to win, though. It's clearly Willis.
He clearly, he definitely did do enough to win. I don't think his stock went up very much. I wasn't impressed by what he did.
And the main event, another resurgence, another return of form. This guy, he's fully back. JDS fully back. Fully back, JDS.
Yeah, it was really impressive. I mean, like Tuivasa looked really good too. Like I think both these guys had their stocks go up big time in this fight. Even if even with this loss, Tuivasa looked really good too.
Tuivasa clearly, you can't be trying to strike a guy from lower mount. That's not going to work, buddy. You got to get some mount escape defense here.
I know,
but yeah, man. That ain't going to work for you. But he came to play. He gave JDS all he could handle in that first round.
For sure,
question about it.
For sure, like he had JDS on the ropes, and like you could even argue that JDS made a mistake by the bell there in the end of the first round.
I like Tuivasa a couple times. He was opening up with, normally you do the 1-2 with, you start with the jab or maybe even two hooks, right, left. And he was coming in with a right elbow and then following it with the left hand. Like that was pretty awesome. And it was kind of like a much shorter hook, like a jumping elbow to the left hook. And that was a really interesting opening. And I loved his also. I have to mention this. His entrance was dope with his tribe coming out with him and introducing him with the music and everything. That was awesome. They should really get into that more of a showmanship thing. That was really cool with the entrance with Tuivasa.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I saw pictures from earlier in the week where JDS was hanging out with him and these tribal people and they're doing ceremonies and stuff together. So JDS was getting all into it too. So I really like to see that out of him too.
Oh man, JDS is super classy, man. I mean, like he's one of the classiest dudes out there.
Well, this was a great fight because they both got to showcase their skills. You saw JDS hitting him with that big right, and you saw Tuivasa hitting him with those elbows in the clinch, and you saw them both really showcasing their skills. But I mean, I thought Tuivasa was getting the better of these exchanges for most of the fight.
I mean, it's like I said, the first round it was back and forth, but Tuivasa gave him all he could handle. I mean, there's no question. And then and JDS, he stunned him up, got him to the ground, and then made easy work with him when he got the mount. I mean, it was over at that point.
Well, there was that one part where JDS had a really good kick check. A really good leg check from Tuivasa that really hurt Tuivasa, and you could see him wince, and Dan Hardy picked right up on it. And I think that was really a turning point because he was really reluctant to press forward after that, and he wasn't throwing like he was. And then he went for this big haymaker, and JDS countered it and put him and he got him right in the button, and he went down. And then JDS just poured on the beatings from side control, and then got the full mount, and that was it.
It was really an example of a brawler versus a more refined striker. I mean, JDS has a more crisp boxing game, whereas Tuivasa, he's leaping at you almost.
He was reckless abandon, I mean?
Yeah. I mean, he's almost fell over and
really
trying to put some of these shots.
Yeah, really exciting, but it's hard to believe that he can dominate everybody with that.
So the dust is settled. We've had a number of great heavyweight matchups. Here's the main problem I have with the heavyweight division right now, Nate. This is more of a state of the union, like we talked about. What we want to do here. I see a top 5. Now, the Wednesdays is when UFC puts out their official ranking. So we're going to see how it all shakes out now with everything that happened. But you got DC, who's essentially a lame duck champion. Okay, no matter what he's going to do, whether you fight where he wants to fight or he fights Brock, he's done. You're going to get a new 2019 champion no matter what. So is he going to give the belt up after winning, or is he going to lose to somebody? What's that about? And then you also have guys like Derek Lewis and Ngannou, who pretty much have, UFC kind of ruined them kind of early here. They gave them 2 title shots too early. They weren't ready, looked like crap, and they are still in the top 5 essentially. And, they kind of have glass floors, Nate. Ngannou, yes, he looked good, against Blades, but he wasn't tested like we mentioned. So You're just waiting for that other shoe to drop. And Lewis, yeah, as we've mentioned before, look completely non-competitive against DL, has no business being, or against DC rather, no business being in there. And Overeem called him out, and I like that matchup. But you got guys with glass floors under them, a lame duck champion at the top. You got guys returning. Kane's coming back. Does Bones move up? Does Brock stick around? There's a lot of moving parts here in the heavyweight division, Nate.
Well, there are a lot of things to be excited for, and something that we saw just this past weekend is, the things that you can sometimes expect to happen don't normally happen, because I thought Blaze was going to beat Ngannou, and I thought Tuivasa was going to beat JDS, and I wasn't really surprised to see JDS win, but I was surprised to see Ngannou win. But seeing these guys fight, Ngannou and JDS probably need to fight.
Oh yeah, I mean
that'd be a great fight.
Getting right to it, if you saw like Dana White, and he was talking like about how with the logjam of lightweight division, okay, I think personally, you take DC out of the equation. You know what I mean? Because I completely out of the equation for 2019, especially if Kane returns and he's really back. He's not fighting Kane. I mean, he's not going to fight Kane. He's either going to fight Brock. He's going to fight maybe Bones, maybe a Stipe rematch, maybe. I think that's the lowest denominator there. I doubt he's going to do that. And he's done. So if you're going to have a lightweight tournament kind of with this 4-man deal, why not do it for the heavyweights, Nate? I love this Kane Stipe. And then, like you said, you put Ngannou against JDS on the other side of the bracket. That's a nice little 4-man deal. That's a nice little 4-man.
Yeah, but I mean, the UFC hasn't really done tournaments. Like, it's just not what they do anymore. Like, I think that they have these informal type tournaments going on just through their matchmaking. Like, I think the UFC sees that formula as turning back the clock on themselves, that they've done all they can to break away from that, to be that they're more legitimate than that. That if they did that, it would be like, shooting themselves in the foot and taking away the progress that they think they've done for themselves.
Well, I don't think it's going to be they're not going to call it a tournament, but they're going to do it just like they're doing it with this lightweights. Like, Dana's even called it out. This is what I want to see. These two matchups and then these two guys fight. That's how however you want to package it, I think that's how it should go down between these 4 guys personally. DC aside, with a Bones possibly moving up, that's I'm putting that to the side because there's a lot of factors with Bones. I don't want to put too much stock into it. Because you got, for example, you have Lewis is going to get, I think, exposed by Overeem if they do have that fight. I like that. Blades didn't have a great showing in China, but maybe he fights Tuivasa, or maybe Tuivasa who called out Big Pretty. I like that fight a lot.
Yeah, because there's some bad blood there too with those guys. They had a little scuffle during the weigh-ins, or no, during the stare down or whatever.
Yes, they did. And Tuivasa's Hunt's boy, the whole deal, called him a bitch after the post fight. There's some beef there, and now you're going to fight Hunt 2.0. I love that fight. I hope they're making that happen in the early quarter. For Blades, there's a lot of things you could do for Blades. I was thinking at first maybe giving him Tuivasa, but I don't think that's good. I would like, that's not good for Tuivasa. I think Tuivasa would get his ground game exposed for that kind of fight. I think a Volkov match would be great because you got Volkov who essentially was winning that Derek Lewis
for
fight.
Sure. And I think if Volkov fought Lewis again, he'd win.
I agree with that, but you can't have him fight in the top 5, Volkov. But you have a guy like Blades. They're kind of in a similar situation. Disappointing losses. You know what I mean? Similar rankings. I'm sure they're going to be right next to each other in the rankings when they come out on Wednesday.
I think Volkov is around 7 or 8, and I think Volkov has a great future because I think he has a really good technique. He's a really big guy. He uses his range well, and I think he could certainly compete with a lot of these guys.
With Blades and both those guys, Blades and Volkov, they're kind of like in the periphery. I could see both those guys fighting for the title at the end of 2019 if things go the right way with these matchups. And those two guys fighting each other would be really interesting. Tuivasa, starting to make it Tuivasa. I mean, this guy, will he compete for a title? He has to get that ground game. He has to get that ground game shored up. I mean, he's definitely got the power. He's definitely Mark Hunt 2.0. There's no question.
Yeah. Tuivasa has all the makings to be a very popular fighter because he's very exciting. He's a charismatic guy. He needs some more rounded skills, though. He needs some ground fighting skills. He needs a little bit more than he has, though.
Let's put it out like this, Nate. Who do you think will be the UFC heavyweight champion at the end of 2019? Going into it. What do you think? I mean, what is there a match you're looking at? One match? Is there a what do you think?
Well, I think it really comes down to if John Jones goes up and fights at heavyweight, because John Jones could become the double champion and defend both belts for probably as long as he wants for the foreseeable future. And I think If he goes up, it's going to be him. If he doesn't go up, who's it going to be? Well, that's really hard to say. I mean, it depends on what fights they put together. They'd probably make Kane and Stipe for the interim title or something like that, or to make it for the championship. And if that were the case, it'd be one of those two, obviously. I mean, I think those two are at the top of the division, and people like Nagano and JDS. I mean, they're kind of on the outside looking in right now.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be very. I mean, bottom line is, I think we both agree that the heavyweight division hasn't been this exciting in a while. Got a lot of moving parts, and it's going to be a great 2019 for the heavyweight division. We have a great, fantastic event coming up next week. We're back at it full force. A true pay-per-view, not this fight night, not this finale stuff. Okay, UFC 231. It's going to be a really great matchup, man. A lot of great ones at the top. Where do you want to start, buddy?
We can just go ahead and start with the earliest ones. I mean, we even have good fights in the prelims.
We just have great fights in the prelims. We got this guy. You've seen him. The main event: Elias Theodorou versus Eric Anders. Eric Anders was a former linebacker for the Crimson Tide. Had a stint with the NFL, the Browns, this and that. He's super powerful. You've seen him, okay? And he was 10-0 when he faced Machida, and he lost a controversial decision. I mean, personally, if he wasn't in Brazil, he wins that fight in my mind. No 100% about it. And then he comes back in August with a KO of the Year candidate against Tim Williams. Then a month later, he's coming in on short notice, making a 205 debut against Thiago Santos, who we're going to talk about later. Okay, this guy is a future star, big power, against a guy that he's a character. This Canadian Theodorou, he is, he won Tough Nations. He's out there. He's definitely a character. He's a pretty boy. He models this and that, but he's got some skills. And he's mainly he's beaten some guys. He beat Mutante. He's beaten Smiling Sam Alvey. He has some solid wins, and it's a perfect fight for these two. But I really feel that Anders is going to make a name for himself on him for sure. I like Anders a lot, getting into the top 15 with a win here, personally.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. Like, I do like Elias Theodorou, but I do think Eric Anders is going to win this.
And then we got some nice ladies fights in the prelims as well. We got Evil Eye, who always brings it. I mean, the girl doesn't have the best record. I mean, it's you look at it, there's no way else to say it. There's a reason why she's in the prelims.
Right, but she's exciting. I mean, like, she lays it all out on the table,
1,000%. And this, I can't even pronounce this woman's name, and I apologize. The Chikahugan trains with Edgar, 11-1. I mean, let's see what she's got. I mean, she gets a tough test against Evil. Let's see what happens. I like that fight. I mean, we're gonna see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, she's a number 3 rank going against Evil Eye, who's number 9 ranked. So the edge obviously goes to her.
And then, of course, probably one of the more cruel grapplers in the UFC. Claudia Gadelha. This girl's a beast on the ground. Beast. It's great to see her in there. Power grappler 115, which is kind of a misnomer if you think about it, but she brings it, this girl. And she's looking to get back to that title fight. This Nina Anasarinov she's fighting, definitely a step down for her. She's number 3, Nina's number 11. But, fight's a fight, and it's good to see Claudia in the game.
Yeah, cruel power grappler is a good way to describe her. I think she's just going to grind this Nina right out. Like, I think, just going to make mincemeat out of her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's staying active, and she's always one step away from a title fight in my mind. But getting into that main card, a quick note about that. Renato Moicano was supposed to fight against Mirsad Belchik, but Belchik dropped out due to injury, so now he's been named as the replacement for the main event, which I hope doesn't come to that. I mean, please, we're all praying here, okay?
Right.
But outside of that, some really great fights on the main card. We got my man Kyle Bochnek. Now this dude, he called my eye when he fought Zabit, or back at 223, and everyone he was the biggest underdog on the card. Zabit's got all the dynamic striking in the world. He's crazy. He's like the Russian Genki Sudo almost.
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
This guy Bochnek, he brought it, brother. I mean, he did. Tank went forward on him, made it a fight of the night. Great fight, and he caught my eye, dude, and I really hope he makes it happen against Dawadu, because he took his opportunity and ran with it against Zabit, and I love that.
Yeah, he did for sure, because Zabit had a lot of really good highlights. He had that crazy trip. He had quite a few things that were really eye catching. But you're totally right, Bochnek. He brought it full force, and he was in that fight the whole way.
And now we got, of course, I love this fight. I mean, this could be. I mean, I would normally call this as a potential fight of the night, and it could still be, right? But we got some great ones at the main event and co-main, so I don't want to even call that right now. But this is a great fight. This is the Cowboy Alex Oliveira, number 13, against Gunnar Nelson, 170. And I don't know, it's been going on the internet, a little bit here, if he's taking like glamour shots or what, but Gunnar's looking like a cut Bruce Lee. I mean, this dude's looking like the best of shape I've ever seen him. Like, he's looking really good, dude.
Yeah, I mean, this is your classic striker versus grappler match. I mean, Cowboy has three performance bonuses and a fight of the night against Yancy Medeiros and beat Condit back in April. He's really well-rounded. I mean, he favors Muay Thai, so I mean, that's the kind of guy that I usually go for.
Right, Gunnar Nelson, first Icelandic fighter to sign with the UFC. He's a black belt under Renzo. He's a teammate of Connor's, which is a big reason why he kind of came into fame early. He was well-rounded, but obviously a great grappler. I mean, he's the jiu-jitsu coach for SBG out there in Ireland. Okay, he's a multiple Pan-American gold medalist, IBJJF World Jiu-Jitsu silver medalist. He's had 4 performances of the nights, and he's been on a long layoff, Nate. It's been a while since we've seen Gunnar.
Yeah, it has been a while. And he had that fight with Ponzinibbio that had that controversy where he had that knockout, but there was the eye poke and, a few other things going on with that. I don't really know. And that was Leon Roberts was the ref of that, and he's usually a pretty good ref, but he must have missed it.
But that was back in July of 17, so it's been a while for Gunnar. That concerns me a bit for him, but he's obviously in shape. I mean, you're seeing it out there. But, Cowboys won 6 of his last 8. His only blemishes being a no contest by illegal knees with Tim Means, which he obviously avenged in his next fight, and a fight of the night loss to Yancy Medeiros, as we mentioned. So, winner's going to go to the top 10 here. Cowboys super hot. This is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is going to be really interesting. And then we have the one after that is Jimmy Manuwa versus Thiago Santos.
Tale of 2 careers here, Nate. One's going up and one's plummeting, my friend. Thiago's on the upswing. He's had a successful run at middleweight, as we mentioned before. He debuted at 205. Against Eric Andrus with a fight of the night TKO, as we mentioned earlier. He's on a 2-fight win streak, win 5 of his last 6. He's beaten Theodoro, mentioned before. He's beaten Nate Marquardt. He beat Anthony Smith. And to be honest, he's the reason why Anthony Smith's no longer, in that division. He moved up too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
then you have Jimmy Manuwa, and I mean, he's, on his way down, obviously. And he was once this, touted undefeated prospect, and then he's lost 4 of his last 7, lost 2 in a row. And his losses were no jokes. I mean, he's been getting knocked out by Gustav, Rumble, and Ozdemir. And his last fight was a fight of the night decision loss to Jan Blachowicz.
Blachowicz.
Yeah, and that was when? That was in March?
Right, that was March 2018. Yeah, he lost. It was still a fight of the night. And, of course, he's losing to the biggest power punchers in the division. I mean, you're talking about Rumble. It's a tough test for Jimmy, bro. This really could knock him out of the UFC totally. I mean, not just the top 10, but out of the UFC if he loses here. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I agree, and I think Thiago's going to win this fight. I mean, he has everything going for him. I mean, like you said, I mean, Thiago's going one way, Jimmy's going the other way.
Jimmy's had a lot of problems dealing with power punchers, power strikers, and that's all that this Thiago is. I mean, he has a big-ass hammer on his chest tattooed. I mean, this is what this guy's about. I mean, he brings hammers. Here's what I would like to see in my mind. Let's say Thiago gets this done, and I think he will. How about a rematch with Anthony Smith at 205? I mean, let's see what happens now. I mean, both these guys are looking good at the new weight class. That'd be a nice rematch.
It would be a really nice rematch. And I mean, Anthony Smith, so that he's holding out for the championship.
We'll see about that. Dana said, like we said 2 weeks ago, Dana's going to fight who he wants him to fight.
He is too. Yeah. Dana doesn't care what Anthony Smith says. It matters what Dana says.
So, getting into it, man, these co-main and main events, Nate, these 2 fights were so tough for me to call, buddy. You got the first one being the co-main, Valentina Shevchenko, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Joanna Violence, Joanna Champion, however you want to say it. For the flyweight championship 125, how do you see this one going down, man? This is a very, very tough fight.
Well, I mean, we're really getting spoiled this month with these co-main events and then the other co-main events at the end of the month because, I mean, this Valentina Johanna fight. I mean, like you said, it's almost impossible to call. We have 2 of the most devastating strikers in mixed martial arts. They did fight, and amateur Muay Thai, and Valentina won that decision.
I mean, that was a little bit different, of course.
And it was also 10 years ago. So you can't put much in that.
It was amateur, so they had shin guards and pads and stuff like that. But make no mistake, I mean, these 2 girls have been steadily rising in the kickboxing and MMA communities since then. And make no mistake, they've had their eyes on each other this whole time. I mean, this has been coming to a head for a while. Here they are. And here's the thing for me with this fight, Nate, you don't got a lot to go on for bodies of work. I mean, when you look at these fights and you try to predict them, you're going to a new weight class, new weight. You got Valentina at 125. Joanna's going up now to 125. They've fought previously at 125 for other organizations, but what talent pool are we talking about? Not this talent level. You know what I mean?
No,
So
for
what are
sure.
you really going to say?
Well,
You know?
Well, like Joanna's amazing. Obviously, I mean, she's a former 115 champion. Her only 2 losses were to Rose.
Right. And she was KO'd by Rose, and this is what I'm trying to get to here with these two. In my mind, you got a Valentina Shevchenko who really understands. She wears she has a tattoo of a gun on her hip. I mean, she's a sniper. You know, she is a precision striking. She really has a good sense of distance when she fights. She really puts the striking at the end of her punches and kicks, which I really like, versus a Joanna who is kind of like, your rushed down fighting game character. She's in there, she's throwing volume, she can sprawl and brawl with the best of them, no question. And she's beaten Cadelia in the title fight. I mean, she's fought power grapplers and come out on top. So it's not that. I mean, Rose is a fantastic wrestler as well, but nevertheless, she can sprawl and brawl with the best of them, but she's about volume. She's about rushing you down, making you make a mistake due to volume and speed. And you got an aggressive fighter versus a more of a counter puncher, and it's an interesting dynamic. Joanna's kind of backed it up a little bit since Rose found the chin and knocked her out. In the rematch, she was much more conservative. She still lost, but conservative. Okay, and then she won again, but again, conservative. You know what I mean? Not conservative. It's a wrong way to say. Not as crazy aggressive. I'll say that, okay? So it's difficult to see what you're going to do here. I mean, personally, I think I like Shevchenko here in a KO in the 4th round. I think, if Rose Namajunas found the chin, okay, and I like Rose a lot. She's scrappy. She can box and things. She's not the level of striker Valentina is, period. And I think if Rose found the chin, I think it's a matter of time before Valentina does. And I see Valentina getting the knockout in the 4th round, personally.
I mean, I could just basically repeat everything that you just said, because that's basically how I feel. Like, I actually have Valentina winning this in the 3rd round with a knockout, because I do think she's a better striker than Rose, and I do think she's going to find her chin, just like Rose did. And I think she's going to knock her out. I think she's a better all-around fighter than Joanna, and I think that's what's going to happen. 3rd round knockout for Valentina.
Main event. I've been waiting for this one for a long time, man. I thought we weren't ever going to get it, okay? I really thought that. You got the blessed one, Max Holloway against T-City Ortega. Dude, this is one of those. I mean, I understand the hype was there with Conor Khabib. For me, this is a match. I mean, I've been looking at this one for a while, dude. I've been dying for this one. I can't wait for this one.
Well, I think the hardcore fans are just about as excited for this as they were for Conor Khabib. It's not getting nearly the publicity that I think it should be getting. But, I mean, this is the biggest fight that 145 has seen in quite a while.
Since Aldo Conor.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And, Max Holloway is the champ. He is an outstanding fighter. He is one of the best in the world. And you have Brian Ortega, who's this rising star who, 6-0 in the UFC. He had that big win over Frankie Edgar.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the first 145-pound title fight that did not include Jose Aldo. I think this is the first time this is happening. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you are wrong. I mean, like, Aldo, he dominated the division for so long, and then Conor just came along and just obliterated him, and people just kind of forgot how great he was.
Right, and then there was a lot of layoff there, but then Aldo fought for the interim title, and then Max defended it. So I mean, I think it's always been Aldo on the other side of the fence, one way or another. And now you're finally seeing the new blood come up with T-City here, and yeah, T-City. Now, the thing with Max, man, and this should have went down in July, and he had that weird thing with concussion-like symptoms, and he talked about it on the Unfiltered podcast.
We went to ER, and they cut out the whole part about it being a weight cutting issue, because we all know, me and you know, that UFC has my medicals. Everybody, the UFC checks the medicals after you check it. If it was a weight cutting problem, they would have stripped my ass. That's just the way it would have went. And they did a concussion protocol and stuff, and we X'd that out. We even asked my team and stuff, even asked the doctors, or the doctors asked us, let's run a talk screen, because we don't know what it is. Vegas is wild. Vegas is crazy. So it's crazy. We got an ongoing investigation right now, but that's all I can say. That's all I can say about that.
And there was talk for a minute that his career was done, this guy. So it's a really weird thing, man. I really hope it doesn't resurface. I hope he's okay. But I think that plays into this fight, buddy. I really do. I gotta call it like I see it. I think that plays into the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does play in the fight a little bit, because it has to be in the back of your mind, because, I mean, it's a scary thing. I mean, and no one knows what happened. I mean, that's even scarier. But I think I think the real difference maker here is Brian Ortega's jiu-jitsu game, his ground skills. I think he's going to just be too much for Holloway once they get on the ground, because I think Ortega has some of the best ground game in the world right now.
No question about it. I mean, Henry Gracie, black belt, okay? But he also showed the power. He had that big knee against Clay Guida, who you still can't knock out with a baseball bat, okay?
Right.
Knocked him out clean with the knee to the face, all right? And then, of course, as you mentioned, the dragon uppercut. I mean, the dragon Shoryuken this guy hit him with, it was just devastating. And outside of that, all Ortega has been is the human equivalent of an instrument used in the French Revolution, man. He's taking necks all over the place. I mean, who's next? You get a guillotine. T-City, he is straight nasty. And you're right. I think the jiu-jitsu will be the factor here, Nate. Max, he's one of the toughest guys out there. I mean, one of the biggest moments. I mean, you talk about those moments where you stand up and you want to like jump through a brick wall. When Max stood in front of that ring, it pointed to the middle of the ring against Lamas, and they teed off on each other, man. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's why I watch the sport. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
That's why I watch the sport. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's what's up.
Yeah.
And then he beats Aldo in Brazil. I mean, he doesn't beat Aldo anywhere. He beats him in Brazil, and just to put a stamp on it, does it again. I mean, this guy's there's no hype surrounding this kid, Max Holloway. This kid is the real deal.
Oh, for sure.
And, real deal situation. But I think you're right. I think Max is regardless of the power in my mind, I feel that Max is a better striker.
I agree.
He needs to stay off the cage, keep a center ring, score from there. That's what needs to happen for Max Holloway. Will he do it? Again, I feel this is kind of like in a purely striking way, the Valentino Joanna, where I think eventually you talk about a 5-round fight. Okay, I think eventually this fight's going to find the ground somehow, and T-City can wrap it up. I mean, T-City can go for a flying triangle. I mean, he's that kind of level dude. He can do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I just feel that eventually the cage work will get Holloway to the ground, and I feel Ortega's going to sub him out by choke. I'll say choke. T-City, 4th round submission. I think T-City, it's his time. And let me just say, before you get to your prediction, let me just say, I'm not taking anything from Max Holloway. I feel this could be the new Gray Maynard, Frankie Edgar kind of situation. I can see these guys fighting 2 or 3 more times. I mean, that's the kind of level of these two guys. I really do believe that.
Yeah, and I believe that too. Like, I do think that Ortega's ground game, like I said, is going to be a bit too much for Holloway. I also have him submitting Holloway in the 5th round, actually, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see where they go from here, because Ortega's really big for 145, and people talk about him going up to 155. I mean, I'd like to see him go up and fight Khabib, but I tell you who I really want to see him fight is Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie's a 145-pound guy. I mean, he's going to drop right in the middle of this situation.
Well, Kron's got a lot to go.
Oh, for sure. It wouldn't be this year anyway, I don't think. But like once Kron Gracie starts beating a few people and people see who he is, and then like the UFC is like, whoa, he's Kron Gracie. I mean, that's someone that you can really advertise. I mean, you could really promote him. There's a lot that remains to be seen with him.
I mean, Ortega's got to get through Max. I mean, that's we're talking about Max. We're talking about T-City winning. I could easily. I mean, it's really a coin flip. This is a coin flip kind of fight for me. I mean, I can see Max doing it too. No question. And I can see them fighting again. Like I said, as long as Ortega wants to stay at 145, because you're right, he is a bigger 145 pounder. Okay, there's other guys in the mix too. I mean, Edgar's not going anywhere. I mean, Moicano's there. I mean, you got Chad Mendez making his return. I mean, you got a lot of 145ers. It's a strong division, and if we're talking about Kron, it'd be a really interesting storyline, no question. Especially got Henry Gracie, Hickson Gracie, the whole deal. But he's got a ladder to climb. You know what I'm saying? He's got a ladder to climb to get up there. These two here, Holloway, Ortega, I mean, again, I feel like I'm a broken record, but this really could be, fight of the year. It really could.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, like Max Holloway is certainly the more proven fighter of the two, I believe. And I mean, Max Holloway is as proven as any fighter in the UFC. I mean, like his resume is as good as anybody's. But it's just like, who's going to be better on this night? And I do think it's going to be Ortega.
So that does it for us this week. It's great to be back. We're going to finish 2018 strong, bud. We got a lot of fun things planned. I can't wait to get after it, man.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We have a lot of good things coming up in the next few weeks. A couple of new segments that we've been working on that I think are going to be great. And we have the big card at the end of the year. I mean, there's so much to look forward to, and it's going to be a great 2019.
We're going to be doing our 2019 predictions, and we are going to start 2019 with their first annual Trading Blows Awards. It's going to be fantastic. And, of course, we wouldn't be there without you guys. And, we want to say, too, join us on our fight nights. I mean, we do those fight parties on Fridays. We're moving it to Wednesdays now, guys. So starting Wednesdays, Trading Blows podcast group, we do the the watch parties, handpick fights an hour by 8 o'clock. We're going to start doing it on Wednesdays, man. Hope you join us. And at any time, of course, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, buddy.
Yeah, the watch party should be great. They're just handpicked classics. Always going to be a great fight.
We should also reveal our next TV profile. We've talked about it, on break, and we've come up with it. We're doing some research. You want to announce it?
Yeah, we're going to do Kevin Randleman.
He passed away tragically in February, and to mark that occasion, man, we're going to do our second TV profile, and we're going to come out the box strong in 19, buddy.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting, and there'll be a lot of exciting segments coming up. Well, it's going to be an exciting time.
No doubt, man. Well, I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you next. See you guys next week.
See you next week. Like we just heard, check us out on Twitter at TBMMAPod or on Instagram at Trading Blows. You can also find us on Facebook at Trading Blows Podcast. Please rate and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you're listening.